So nice to meet you all, guys. So I am Roxana Velázquez, and probably you heard I am the director of the Art Museum in Balboa Park.
Oh,
wow. It's very impressive, right?
To me.
The most important and more impressive thing is that I have the great privilege of knowing Tamara de Lempicka a long time ago. Of course, not alive. Of course, that would make me a little older. But it is really a passion of mine. I am an art historian, and I have done exhibitions in many, many countries. But at the time, it was 2008, I was the head of the Fine Arts Palace, and that one deserves a That is indeed one of the most important art institutions, and it is 4 blocks in a city of 25 million inhabitants, which is Mexico City. And the building itself is the Opera House where Maria Callas sang. So that building is Art Deco. It was done exactly when the revolution started, and it was done in the style of the Deco. So it would have been the perfect place for Tamara. And I had the wonderful joy of bringing one of the largest exhibitions of Tamara de Lempicka to that building in Mexico City in 2009.
Wow.
So this is the story where I am trying to introduce to you why I was very trapped by her personality. I think she is a fabulous woman. She's a fabulous human being. And of course, he is a victim of her own fame, because she's like a pop icon. So you will see t-shirts and pens and things that diminish the quality of her art. It's like in the case of Frida. And now we go back and forth with Frida Kahlo as well, because there you have 2 very powerful and important women that share the same time. So it is really nice to go back and forth. And I am sure I am here talking to you because you will be performing her life and her context. And I thought, how would I do a lecture? I am very used to do lectures, very academic, very footnoted, and very comparison. But I think for you guys, it would be better to sense the spirit of Tamara. This is what happened when she walked. What happened when she looked into the eyes of the people that she spoke. Because she is one of the most seductive persons in the world. This is spectacular. She's seduced intellectually, of course sexually, erotically, but intellectually, my dears, it's much more difficult. Right? Yes or no?
Yes.
So in order to seduce, which is a word that it's very used in any language but English, right? And here, take the opportunity to remember that Tamara spoke several languages. She is a real knowledgeable woman that played between Polish, French, English, and even Spanish. And why is that so? Because a woman of her caliber and of her nature had many things that she designed. She is one of those persons that really took advantage of every single random thing that happened in her life. We as humans tend to complain all the time. Oh, I have to do the test. The COVID test is horrible. Or what have you. The mask. Everything bothers us. There's our bees. But this is a woman. Yeah. Yes or no? You would say everything bothers us. But let me bring here to the stage why I personally and selfish, the same as Tamara was, have chosen her as one of my favorite characters. Tamara not only was spoiled, super wealthy, aristocratic, but also had to defeat real adversary and problematic situations. She, in the joy of a very pop icon, superficial, aristocratic lady with millionaires, she had to live First World War, Second World War, Spanish civilian war in 1937. Of course, she had to leave the country several times. She was super wealthy and then absolutely famine. She lost everything. So this aristocratic woman with all the wealth and chateaus and paintings and carpets had to work because she didn't have money to buy food. So yes or no, this is fantastic. She defeated every single challenge and proved to the people that she was better than that.
Yes.
This is very inspiring for me, and I don't know if for you it's making sense. But we look at her modeling in her beautiful photos, smoking very elegantly, always super skinny, super tall, elongated figure, but in reality, she was a working bee behind the scenes. And she did not allow anybody to know that. So she was a perfect actress. That's what she did. She hid every single thing. And boy, she had pains. And this is incredible. She even went through a depression, which probably you know already. Probably you all are experts in her. But it is important that you read this kind of little passages. For example,
Please try
something
again.
went wrong, Sadie. Shut up, Sadie. I don't know why I'm carrying a phone. But anyway, so she had a depression even and went to Switzerland. Of course, as the wealthy people did, right? But that means that she was really tortured. So where to start with the story of somebody so complex? Somebody that besides being capable to defeat every single challenge, lack of money, lots of money, changes. She detested her stepfather, for example. Her father abandoned her. Her father was Russian, but she was born in Warsaw. But she was born in 1898, but some books said that she was lying about her age. So there are mysteries. Some people say she was born in Warsaw, but she was born in Russia, but she was a combination. At the time, all the women used to change their age. Today, probably for us, this generation, and your generation, sounds ridiculous, right? But at the time, Frida Kahlo did the same, George O'Keeffe did the same, and you keep thinking, why would they say that? In the case of Frida Kahlo, she decided to say that she was born with a revolution. In reality, she was born 2 years before. But that way, she had a wiggle room to be younger. So again, these kind of things for nowadays sound stupid, but for you, it's important. She wanted to flirt with younger people, so she was really looking into that. So Tamara, how everything starts. She's born into this wealthy aristocratic family. Her mother was from Poland, but she was Polish-French, the mom. The father was also from Russia. But there's this confusion at the time. Which is the country? Is it Russia? Is it Poland? They're Slavics. And they have this strong character, which you will all see in her paintings. She has this tradition. She went to the school in Moscow. That's her first lessons of painting. But why was she painting? She was sent to Lausanne, as I said, not only for the depression, which is in the 30s, but when she was a little girl at 10, she went to Switzerland to start studying. She was bored to death. She was some of these people that is born with curiosity, intelligence, smart, wittiness, and she didn't want to be there. So her mom sent her to Switzerland. But then the grandma saves her, because I already mentioned that she was kind of a performer. She was an actress. She was pretending. And she pretended a huge big tuberculosis cold or something with the lungs. There was no COVID at the time. But she was pretending she had something, so she had to be taken to Italy. At the time, she's around 13 years old, 12 years old, a teenager. We all have done things when we were teens, right? But she wants to go to Italy, and that's the dream of her life. Because Grandma Clementina, the wonderful model for her of aristocracy, femininity, determination, which is Clementina, the grandma, takes her to this incredible trip to Italy. And that's when her eyes her beautiful, gorgeous, extraordinary, almost iron blue grayish eyes that were so deep and so enormous. It's not the size what calls the attention here, even though they occupy all her face. It's the deepness in the sight and how she penetrated each one of the people she was seeing with that sight. She was cold. She was always cold, but in reality, you know what happens with people that are cold and shy? They're hiding something. They are not really that, but that was her best to protect from being damaged emotionally or from being naked in the way she was always hiding. She was really poor. It's very interesting. So how one pretends that, hey, don't look at me, but just look at those eyes. And of course, she is spectacular, I would say. She masters the performing role, the acting and hiding in the great sense. But the story goes on. She's already been in Italy with Grandma, and Grandma Clementina is a real gambler. She loves to play. She's a genius, and the casinos, and Monte Carlo, and all the wealthy women do it at a time. So because Tamara was so young and she couldn't enter these casinos, the grandma puts a professor of painting, and they start teaching her lessons to draw. And guess what? Tamara was a genius. She was a really incredible capacity for capturing the soul of the people. One thing is to do good drawings, good landscapes, good handcraftship or skill sets in that sense. Another thing is to capture the soul. And you guys do it. Every time you perform a role, you know what I'm talking about because you're the genius for that. You have to convert yourselves into another person. But to capture the essence of a human being in a paper or a canvas or a sculpture even, that's complicated. How do you do that? And she did it outstandingly. So there's hundreds and hundreds of anecdotes about Tamara. And people like newspapers, like social media, like all this that you live today, don't have the capacity of attention. They get bored immediately. And we just say, what is a gossip? What happened? Who was the lover? Who was the mistress? What happened with the woman? Was she bisexual? Yes or no? These are the things that people ask. And I am here exactly for the opposite, to help you from an art historian perspective and my own selfish selection, showcase why she is important in the art history. Not only in the fame of a lady that was very attractive and socialite, somebody that, again, started in Warsaw, went to Russia, then has to go to Paris because of the Bolshevik Revolution, right? All these wealthy people, they just have to go, take their jewelry, and she has to sell everything because there's no money. And Tadeusz, the most handsome, and I was going to show you some of the images now. It's difficult, Gracielita. The most, if it is there. If it is not, I'll describe it.
This is you want me to jump up to Tadeusz?
Just let me show them a little bit here. So I just was mentioning that Tamara was a rebel, and she created this story of the cough or the tuberculosis to let the school because she wanted to be with Grandma in Italy. But then she always says, I didn't have professors. I didn't go to a formal school. I am myself teacher, right? She's very selfish. You have to remember, she's fighting for a place in the art world. And she came up with 4 phrases. I don't think she has a lot that we all know. I don't copy. I create my own art. And she reaffirms one after the other that she's unique. And guys, she is. This is very important to mention, at least from my perspective of an art historian, not of a reader of Vanity Fair, which is also an important part of our conversation, because she was in those magazines. Vanity Fair, Die Dame in Germany, and that's how she got all the fame to the United States, like popping. So I am here just to show you what really inspired Tamara. Maybe nobody has spoken about this, or probably you will see it in some books. Bronzino, 16th century master Italian. She just went like incredibly crazy for the Renaissance masters, Manierist masters, the luster, the way they represented the flesh. This is real traditional art of the 16th century, But that's what she's admiring. And just look at that. Because you have to remember that Tamara is a woman of the 20th century. I just mentioned the wars that happened. She represents the 20th century. She's the modern woman, the magazine. But yet, there's her love. The old masters of the 16th century. The elegance, keep going, Rafaela, of obviously the Bronzino. When you see these pieces of art, which are very weird and random, this is in the National Gallery, this is Angre. Look at one common thing. The real luster and the flesh, how it's finished. It's almost impressive. And what's happening in the world when Tamara is in Paris? You all know. It was Impressionism. It was Picasso, the Cubism. The Futurism in Italy. All the isms, Futurism, Cubism, Manierism, Symbolism, all the vanguard. But yet that's what she is thinking as the greatest art. And she was so daring and so presumptuous that even said, Impressionists don't know how to paint. Monets and Cézannes, they are ridiculous. They just pretend that they are painting. Yet they are just dirty. They are putting the colors in the dirt. This is her own concept. It sounds ridiculous today to us, but you need to understand. Those were the big masters for her. Angre, Bronzino, keep going, Rafaela. Thank you, Veronese. And look at this incredible Venus and Adonis image, which is so famous. She does as Susanna and the Elders exactly the same. When you start comparing her works of art, those that are in the posters and everywhere, you will see how classic she is. So that's the beauty of the story. I'm talking about an hybrid human being that combines, or a mixture, this thing with the other thing, the fusion of the new cuisines, but in a human being. So you, or probably the people, think she's so modern. Here you go, the old art. Keep going, Rafaela, thank you. Caravaggio, that sounds very blurred, I'm sorry, but Caravaggio is the genius for her, as from many of us. The light, the chiaroscuro, the contrast, the delicacy of pointing what she wants to in her paintings comes from here. And then obviously his masters, keep going, Rafaela, are Lot and Maurice Denis. And this is kind of a cubism artist. It is not Picasso, it's after Cubism. It's post-Cubism, or the Nabi art, or all these isms again that happened in the first 25 years of the 20th century. And she really says, I am myself teacher, but yet she had attended classes with Denis and Lot, one of the greatest post-impressionist and post-cubist artists. So you will see that her works of art are that combination. The classicism, but yet all the backdrops are very cubist. So that's very easy now that I'm saying it. I'm sure you knew this, but it's good to see it, right? Yeah. Keep going, Rafaela. So I was talking about Tadeusz. That is her most handsome and extraordinary husband. Tamara gets married very, very early in 1918, and she was obviously able to secure this wonderful husband, because there's a dowry involved. There's the grandman, the aunts helping accommodate this traditional, you have to get married, right? But in reality, that's the father of her only daughter. It's called, Kisette, Maria Cristina, who was born exactly some months after they got married. And they got married in this fantastic chapel of St. Petersburg in Russia. And it was a wonderful wedding, but of course, little we know about this. Just this is what we know. Kisette Maria Cristina is born 1919, very soon after, and she becomes the first model for Tamara. But why? Because they are getting married in 1918. Remember 1917, Bolshevik Revolution, Russia, they have to run. And Tadeusz, go back at Rafaela. Tadeusz, the wonderful husband, even gets into jail. And he gets, obviously, you know that passage, it's very, very well known. He gets there because he's accused to be connected to the Tsars. And the new social movement is appearing. So So when Tamara paints him, she was absolutely in love with him. She thought he was part of the beauty, a piece of a puzzle that had to be there to complete her own life. So she punishes him and paints him without a finished hand, which was supposed to carry a ring of wedding. So this is why this is called a portrait of an unfinished man. And she said, my husband was an unfinished man, because it's very strong. You will see phrases that you will not see here in Maide, but you will read a lot. There are 25 books about Tamara, so you can read them all, or Google, what have you. And I could have imprecisions here also, because remember, there are contradictions between authors and authors. She's so hiding person, so exciting. But what happened with this painting? This is a fabulous, enormous portrait, life-size figure, almost. And Thaddeus arrives to Paris, and he is shocked after the Yale incarceration, and he doesn't want to work. Why would he be working? You know, he's so elegant, so lawyer, and he's so trauma. So Tamara needs to work. So they just have a girl, Gisette, so that's when everything starts. So the sister of Tamara has a brother and a sister, as you all know. The sister is Adriana. And Adriana was an architect and another revolutionary woman that was one of the first that belonged to the Architecture Society in Paris. She says, Tamara, you are so good. When you were a little girl, you knew how to draw. Go back, take classes, and make a living out of painting. And that's what she did. And there we go, the first models, there we go with the husband. Keep going, Gracielita. Gisette, the daughter. She didn't have money for models, so she just started portraying the family, whatever she had there. But look at her style. These years of the 20s, 30s, guy, the 27, 25, or the 35, are the glorious of Tamara. I would say this obviously from the art viewpoint. From the paintings, these are extraordinary, and I put a selection of multiple pieces here that, wait a little bit, okay, that's Gisette again, and I just want you to observe clearly that this is a very young teenager, and look what a perverse femme fatale could this be. The expression, right? It's like a Balthus, if all of you know Balthus, the author. She is not really a little girl, look at that. She could be an old, you know, she's playing with that femme fatale, pervert expression, which calls a lot my attention. But then we go to a first communion. Let's go, Graciela, la que sigue. Por favor. Okay. And this is when she starts really awarded at the museums. In France, she got bronze medals at Poznan in Paris. She's able to get to the salon, the exhibitions at the salon of the women artists, etc., and she gets accolades. But starts very young. So she says, another of her phrases, they could be 100 or 200 artists, but my paintings were always selected. I was always hanging in the center of a gallery because people knew that my paintings were the ones that will obviously be sold. And fame starts very rapidly, and she gets super well known in a very fast pace. She took 3 weeks only to do a portrait like this one. She painted with such speed, and she was so good that, of course, virtuosity was really a gift that she had since she was a little girl. So these pieces of art, again, keep going, Marcelita. Okay, well, we go back here. I was just trying to show here the backdrops. Remember, they are very classical figures, all painted, very well described, but always the backdrops have kind of this cubist deconstruction of space. Perspective originally for her started in the icons, the Russian icons that are very flat, right? Not the European perspective with the landscape at the back, but you here see the modernity. So she could not be a Bronzino or a 16th century person or a Veronese. She is a modern woman that is surpassing already Impressionism. So keep going. So a little landscapes, and of course you know this one, because this is the epitome of what is a modern woman, and she wants to demonstrate, and she becomes the demonstration of modernity, independence, freedom, attractiveness, the car, the driving, the cigar, whatever, the luster in the silk and the echarpes that she wore. So she starts her own brand. And this is very interesting because you have to remember, we all talk about branding and marketing. There was no concept like this in the past. She became the ambassador of herself. And she wanted again and fought to be recognized as a great artist. And all of you know about Deco art. And Deco is the decorative art. And the word, as many of the words started being diminishing. Deco art means decorative. Doesn't mean high art. So it's pejorative. It comes underneath the concept of art historians. It's deco, oh, this is a table, this is a furniture, it's a photo that's decorating, but it's not high art. So she said, I will make deco the highest art. So and you could see why, when you read about who are the artists that are deco, you will always find Tamara de Lempicka. And Tamara obviously created her own brand. Her life was connected to the paintings or the pieces that she represented. She acted as such, and this is another parallelism with Frida. It's very interesting. Frida became the Mexico. She represents Mexico in your brands. What is Frida? Mexico. Immediately she's a brand and she's an ambassador for a country. I want to see Mexico because it's like Frida. So the same happened with Tamara. Tamara was modernity. Tamara was a flapper. Tamara was the mode, a la fashion. The woman that could fight for liberty, could choose if she liked men or women, doesn't matter. There are no boundaries. It's about passion, but it's about intelligence. And it's about knowing history and knowing languages and being daring. That was what she was. That's the brand. And the way she obviously portrayed. This is incredible because all of us, we all have seen this image wherever. In any restaurant, cafeteria, posters, whatever. It's a pop icon, as I keep saying. And what is this? Why would she do that? There was some smartness. This is a lithograph, guys. This is not an oil. We see engravings all over. What is a lithograph? What is an engraving? What's the difference? It's like a poster. It's affordable to all. It's a multiplication of original pieces, right? So yes, it's not the high art, but it's a decoration and it's affordable to many. So it, boom, expands the knowledge or the passion for one brand. So keep going, Rafaela. Of course, you know this piece as well. And look how incredible is this girl with the globes, which the other one is a self-portrait. And this could also be a self-portrait, but it's very structured and very mechanic. Keep going. See how we're doing here? Of course, the Russian ballerinas, keep going. And here we go. One of her favorite models, Rafaela. I have not seen the play. You have to tell me Rafaela appears. So I don't need to say anything about Rafaela. What do you think? Why don't you share with me your knowledge? What I can share with you is these are the most wonderful paintings. And one of the joys of my own personal life, keep going, Rafaelita, is that I was able to acquire this painting for a collector. So I went to an auction house in London and I acquired this piece in 1995-96. This is this is one of those privileges in life, or blessings, or luck, or whatever word comes to your mouth that I had. And this is Rafaela. So go back to the pink tunic, yes, and this is so famous. And it's the same model. But again, what are you seeing here? You're seeing this incredible, voluptuous, sensual body, an amount of flesh that could be a Rubens of the 17th century, but yet the modernity is there. And her face, which is obviously disappeared almost, it's very, very lisa, flat, lustered, finished. What she said, I am the talented one. I do know how to paint, not the others. Remember, not Cézanne, not Monet. She's positioning herself. But go to the next one, 27, the same Rafaela, whom you know, she spent a year painting her after she found her in the Bois de Boulogne. And that is amazing for me because these piece, look at the eyes. are in this pose of il dolce far niente, which is exactly what the 19th century brought. Women were working since the beginning, but the way we represent women in the 19th century, when they get to the public sphere, is il dolce far niente. They do nothing. They are the angels of the house, and they are captivated there. But here you have, she's reading, she's bored, almost annoyed, but look at those eyes. They are observing. It's incredible. I hope you could see these images. Keep going, Rafaelita. And of course, in Sonia, this was the beautiful Rafaela. Look at this one. My images don't project well here, but you could see it in your own systems. But look at the capacity of synthesis. There's nothing there, and it's everything. See, it's a consolidation of a figure. Boom! It seems like nothing. You don't need Baroquism, you need gilded, or a mirror or something that decorates. It's just the character, the flesh of the person. But that's called synthesis, and that's genius. That's the genius. The geniality of seeing somebody managing the light as Caravaggio in the 17th century, but with the capacity of just portraying a woman of not aristocratic descendants, but one that became the most important model for her. So here you go in the game of boundaries and limits, and how everything just dilutes and evaporates, and she knows she's good. She knows it very well. So look at Marjorie Ferry, again the 30s. Marjorie Ferry, this is one of the last paintings that went into auction, probably you all know, and this painting went for $22 million. Okay, and this was in 2019 or 2018, very recently. People just go nuts when they see these things in the auctions. So they are really into it. And that's one of my mysteries, why people drive crazy, right? Again, is it the gossip? Is it the talent? Is it the society of the time? And I'm going to tell you again, it's the uniqueness. Who could do all those games of destiny and fate, surpass them, be bright, and have that capacity of painting in the real world, in a modern sense? Number one. Number two, originality. I can copy, and I know you all know the Impressionists, and you have seen those galleries, maybe in Chicago, maybe in the Met, maybe in LACMA, maybe galleries and galleries and galleries of bridges, or the Cathedral of Notre Dame, or everything, the tree, one poplar here, going to this side, and then the other poplar going to this side. And it's 5 o'clock in Notre Dame, and the Cathedral de Rouen, and then you have 100 of those, and they go for millions of dollars. And why? Why? Guys, for me, that's called photocopy. You understand? It's a replica. And all were, hey, let's talk about the same things. They go to Montmartre. I love Impressionism, don't get me wrong. But when you see thousands, yes, the first one, guys, but what about when you see thousands? I don't know if you have the same sense as I when you see a Rodin sculpture, Le Penseur. You all have seen it. How many versions have you seen? So there's something that lacks uniqueness, originality. There's something that kills the poetry, at least for me. This is original work. There's no so many. So again, why people go nuts for these pieces of art? Interesting. And again, I'm talking here about market because you should know that. And keep going, Graciela. Let's see what else did. Well, of course, Adam and Eve, this master of masters, right? And keep going because we are okay. Didam. These are kind of the typical posters of the time, which help her propel her career, because this was the cover of those feminist magazines. But at the time, but again, look at the perversion in those eyes. Look how they look like femme fatale, like almost diabolic. Oh, there's something weird. I had those paintings at my own exhibitions, but I have had the joy and the privilege of seeing them here, just here, unpacking them. And so that's why I'm telling you that those eyes are disturbing. Yes or no? Yes. So remember, when you are performing, you have to disturb the audience. It's true. Because, I love when something provokes something inside of you. Because most of the people are dead, but they're walking. They haven't realized it, but sensibilities are kind of, look at that. This is disturbing. Indeed. And the other one seems so aristocratic, so snobbish, but in reality, there's power in those 1929. What was happening in 29? Not to forget. The crash, the big depression of the United States. So they had gone to New York. And when I say they, this is the second husband. The first one already you know, he stopped working. He's called the unfinished man, Tadeusz. But then she finds this second husband, the Baron of Kufner, and that's why she's called the Baroness with the brush. Because she decides to marry a baron who was Austro-Hungarian, who had this incredible chateau and a lot of wealth. She was not kidding. She had to sell her things. She had to be very sincere in what she was fetching for. She was not kidding. She got a man that was wealthy and that could satisfy the needs that she had and that she thought that were her own needs, because she was born with that, even though she was wrapped from that and had to erupt after the Bolsheviks. But remember, so that sticked in her brain. So there's obsession, stubbornness, and the fabulous intelligence. Get those mix for your smoothie. It's getting a very nice smoothie. It's a mixture, guys. So keep going. Look at that. The Duchess of Sal and the game between the strength of women. Almost androgynous. There's a sensual piece in her characters, but there's androgynia, which she learned from the Bronzino in the 16th century and from the Greeks. She is not stupid, I keep saying. It's not random that she wants a woman that look like men. No, she saw it at the Pompeii trips, the Greek sculptures. She knew about that. That's what's fantastic. Okay, keep going. And another one of the very famous lithographs, because these are works on paper that were made in order to be distributed like posters. And remember your Toulouse-Lautrec posters, cartels. That's the massive distribution of art. And this is just fabulous. So we are getting to the end of these decades. Of course, wonderful images. Keep going, Graciela. And very repetitive, if you will. But these are the 10 years that I've selected as the period of her mastery. Keep going, and her own style. Of course, Dr. Boucard, so she portrayed intellectuals, scientists. Mrs. Bush, the wife of Mr. Bush, an oil owner and very wealthy American. That's why she started traveling to the United States. And after New York, 1929, 1930, they moved to Beverly Hills. Where else? Why would she go to Kansas? She chose Beverly Hills. Isn't it? Again, she's tailoring her own destiny. That's what I'm trying to say. There's nothing random here. Random is my talk, because I have the right to talk about what I want. It's an informal talk, right? At this moment, at least.
Yeah.
But it is interesting how she weaves and carves her own destiny, her own fate. Keep going, Graciela. And there you have Entre Gide. It's not only about random millionaires, oil people. It's also about intellectuals or aristocracies that were really already passé. They're like oldies. But here we go. Keep going. That Gide, I'm sorry, go back. Gide, I was so impressed when I saw these eyes. They are almost like this dark, very profound and deep holes, like the ones in the universe.
Yeah.
And you don't know if he has no eyes. But boy, what an expression, even without eyes. That's amazing. The gesture in the mouth, the strength of those wrinkles. Look at that perfection. And that painting, guys, is this size. That's not a life size, it's this one. So I had it also in my show in Mexico. So keep going, Graciela. And Baron Kufner, her second husband, whom she, of course, had to leave Austria, and you know the story. They went to New York, they designed this incredible apartment, and she packed and created all the wonderful trophies of decorative arts. Again, the watches, the carpets, the tables, the Biedermeiers, all what they have, all this style. And then you have here Pierre de Monton. These are wonderful portraits only. Okay, keep going. And some of her photos. So arriving to her, of course, Salvador Dali here. So she met Dali, she met Picasso, she knew about Magritte, and remember all this incredible cascade of geniuses that are in Paris at the time. And that's what she absorbs and smells and feels, and that's how she comes about. And this is a painting that is very strange. This, obviously, the Mother Superior. I think we have it later, Rafaela?
Yes.
Just go there, because this apartment was published in most of the magazines of the time, and it was a jewel of Art Deco, and it was done by her sister, Adrienne. And it's the representation of minimalism. Nothing could be more modern. She's Baroque inside, but outside she's always super subtle. Right? Keep going. Graciela, acá. Well, we see her painting there, another painting of Madame Boucard. Keep going. Yes, but there comes a time when, after those decades, she gets the depression that I said. She sees the war, she sees the problems, she has been forced to leave her country again, and she starts painting those religious subject matters. They are very strange to us, but of course 37, the refugees from Spain, the Civil War, Franco, she starts doing those subject matters. The musician, the old musician that it's begging, right? It's a beggar and has no eyes also, but he's really not only deaf, but he's absolutely visually impaired. So these are the subjects. So what happens with Tamara? Tamara changes dramatically, and forget about these incredible, joyful, seductive pieces that I showed. This is how she converts her career. I did not put too many. Keep going, Graciela. I think just to show you still lifes. I mean, what could be more boring? Sorry, after what I just said, right? But that's a shift. She wants to reconcile, reconsider her path of superficiality, or this Hollywood actress, this is stupid, the world is really in flames. And that she has that type of life. But then she decides, we have this is going to be almost the last one, but she decides that she wants to visit and be with Gisette. The relation with her daughter was always very tricky and challenging. The daughter adored her father. Of course, Tamara did not. Tadeus was an unfinished man for her, and she never changed that concept. And she decides that she wants to go to Cuernavaca, Mexico. That's the very interesting place, because Cuernavaca is just an hour and a half from Mexico City. I was telling you about when we started this talk, the Palacio de Bellas Artes. So she visited the Fine Arts Palace. And she wanted to be in Cuernavaca because that was the city of the eternal spring. The weather is spectacular, and many of the important people of the time went to Cuernavaca, Morelos in Mexico. So this is a place where huge mansions were. It was everything that she had dreamed: maids, kitchen maids, chauffeurs, affordable. It was not Beverly Hills, it was Mexico, but intellectually speaking, everybody went there. From Octavio Paz, the Nobel laureate of literature, to the Woolworth, Barbara Hutton, the heiress of the Woolworth family, had built an enormous palace of Japanese pagode, something for her lover, that is Barbara Hutton. And you see the houses and you will not believe, flowers, bougainvilleas, callalais, and the odor of Cuernavaca. And that was the place she wanted to be. She's almost 78 years old already. 75, and she decides that her mansion has to have a koi pond, has to have, obviously, a lavender room with flowers that are fresh every 3 days. So she has just a maid to put her fresh flowers in her bedrooms. And her odor should smell like a patchouli or these perfumes of the time. And of course, she keeps wearing her Coco Chanel-like outfits, but she's still smoking and very wrinkled, but her eyes, per description of her own granddaughter, were as intense and as penetrating than anything else. Everybody went there and bowed to her because there was a regalness in her being. Everybody wanted to kiss her as if she were a queen, an empress. There was a regalness in her. And this is incredible because what she does as a painter, she lives with Victor Contreras, is a sculptor that still is alive in Mexico. And she adopted him as a son. And she starts playing and repeating the pieces of the 30s that I show you. So she does another Rafaela, another, I don't even put images because for me, that's obviously decadence. That's the place where the pieces are not as good, but they are replicas or copies done by herself. And as you know, she closes her eyes in 1980 while she's asleep. So she has this incredible, so we know, death of the saints. Because she's not suffering, she just fell asleep and never woke up. So that's where we have Tamara. At the time, that's biography ended, but it has never ended because I just jumped ahead of myself. And before she passes, this is 1972. The big, yes, that's her. All the photos that I have shown is her, all the black and white. And this is her in Paris. Alain Blondel, one of the most important critics of the and gallerists of her work, who wrote the Raison Catalogue, this size book, as Alain Blondel organizes at the Palais de Luxembourg in near the Tuileries in Paris, an exhibition to, again, recoup what was the luster of the 30s. This is the decade of the Deco period, so most of their importantissimas works of art are there, and she comes about again in all the media. But for certain years, when she's painting the Mother Superior, or the poverty in Spain, or she's depressed, she's disappeared. Already the movements had nothing to do with the Deco times. So that's what happens when you live so many years, right? And you witness so many changes. But at this moment, she is awakened with joy. And she again reconciles with herself. So I mentioned in Cuernavaca, she was copying her own pieces, but not to show. She was not stupid. She was brilliant, and she knew her career was done. But that was for her to keep alive. She needed to paint to keep alive, but then obviously nowadays we know that those copies exist and that were done by herself, but she never wanted anybody to see them. Her everything was not in the shape of the 30s, right? But yet she kept painting. So this is the story. Of course, as we said, she died in 1980, but she's never dead. And I again repeat, put a painting in an auction in New York or in London or in Bonhams or wherever and see the millions of dollars that it attracts. It is with us. I think she's the trendiest of the spirits. She made a mark. Many people follow her because of revelry, of course, brilliancy, of learning languages, many things, and she's become an icon of feminism as well. So I will let it there. I think it's time for me to shut up.